This is Front and Nationwide on the Athletic Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Front and Nationwide. Aaron Portzline with you, senior writer at The Athletic, joining you to talk all Blue Jackets all the time. Hope your guys are having great weeks. You should be in a good mood if your hockey team is the determinant of that. Blue Jackets with the 5-1 win last night over Carolina. Maybe their most authoritative win of the season. Would you agree with that? Pretty good in Tampa, too, the 5-2 win. To start that road trip. Blue Jackets host the New York Rangers Thursday in Nationwide Arena, and they'll have Seattle in town on Saturday. We always like to have Alison Lukan around, but the timing is just perfect. Alison Lukan will join us momentarily for a chat about the NHL, the Blue Jackets, the Kraken, as they come into town. Couple of notes here. First, congratulations to Ohio University. Wins the ACHA Men's Division I Championship, first time in 22 years for the Bobcats. I believe that is correct. Congratulations to them. I can only imagine the scene in Athens last night. It is St. Patrick's Day. Well, hell, it's Athens. And on many of the bars down there in that wonderful city, they had the ACHA Men's Division I Championship game on. Ohio U 3-1 over Adrian of Michigan. So congrats to all of the people down there in Athens and beyond who care deeply about hockey. Blue Jackets, 2 points out of the Metro, 1 point out of the wild card. It feels like it's been this way for a while now, hasn't it? One thing I've noticed, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but what's happened with, I'm sure there's some frustration or there's some, not disillusionment, but bewilderment, sort of bemusement maybe of people who are remarking that, geez, the Blue Jackets, they just keep winning and they can't quite get there. I think they're making what I would call quiet progress in the standings now. If you look, for a while, they were chasing the bottom wild card and the bottom Metro. Now they're chasing both of those wild cards and both of the Metros. They're also chasing, you could say, 3 Metros with Montreal within distance as well. The point is, if this continues, if they continue to collect points and play at a high level, and they have a 10-game winning streak, or a 10-game point streak, 6-0-4. I believe that's tied for the 5th longest point streak in the franchise's history. If they continue to accumulate points, there's going to be a night where they could win a game, and if things happen to their benefit ahead of them, and so far they've only happened to their detriment in the standings, it seems. But if things go right above them and the Blue Jackets continue to win, there could very well be a night where they jump not just into a spot, not just past a team and into a spot, but over 2 or 3 teams, right? Like they're getting that close to a lot of teams. So it is super competitive in the East right now, as you might have noticed. Blue Jackets cranking right along. They don't have the tiebreaker over a lot of teams, but one of the reasons the win last night was so big is it was in regulation. There's so much about that game last night to be impressed with. Just a couple minutes on that before we get to the great Alison Lukan. Zach Werenski did not score. Kirill Marchenko did not score. And they beat the best team in the Eastern Conference by standing. That sounds subjective, but they are at the top of the Eastern Conference. They beat them 5-1. They put up 5 goals on a really difficult team to play against. Few things that came to mind watching that game. Carolina demands a very high pace of play. They make you make plays with the puck before you're ready to make them. And the Blue Jackets now are to the point where they play at a pace close to that regularly, but they also have the skill to make those decisions quickly. There were some absolutely stunning plays last night. Charlie Coyle behind the net to Marchment, the first power play goal in the first period. Wow, that happened very quick. That Carolina penalty kill is really a heightened version of the pressure that they apply even at 5-on-5. Like, it's really impressive, and the Blue Jackets really moved well within that. I thought the tenor of that game was set 8 seconds in when Cole Sillinger, back on the third line with Charlie Coyle and Matthew Olivier, absolutely just crushed the bones of a Carolina player on the end boards. Huge hit, Chatfield, and really set a tone for, okay, this is how it's going to be. The Blue Jackets, and this was my complaint for 50 games this year, maybe 45 games, is that they waded into games and waited for other teams to dictate how the game was going to be played and then tried to match it. They're not doing that right now. I think there's also a sense with this club, and it really became obvious to me last night. The parts are pretty darn good with this team. The sum of the parts now are greater than the whole. And the sum of, did I say that right? I think you know what I mean. They're playing in a way where they're really together. There's a real identity about them, especially with the forward lines, I think. And I'm writing for tomorrow that there's a lot of attention, and completely rightly so, towards Zach Werenski. He's having an incredible season. Kirill Marchenko, now 100 goals in his career, 25 in the season. A dynamic player. He's back to being dynamic again after the All-Star break. You can go up and down. Charlie Coyle's having a career season at just the right time, but boy, has he had a huge impact on this team. Jet Greaves is having a best since Bob performance. He's really having a quietly a phenomenal first full year in the NHL. I thought he was really good last night. So there's a lot of good things going on right now that are impossible to miss. The one thing that's really impressed me, and it doesn't surprise me at all, but I think it bears noting, and writing about this for the Athletic, should be published Thursday morning. Boone Jenner, in the span of 2 years, has gone from this team's first line center to this team's fourth line center. And he hasn't made a peep about it. He's moved to the wing to get him out of the center. He's moved back to the center. And just look at what he did last night. I'd have to have the numbers in front of me, but he was like 11-1 on faceoffs. Because of the way the game went, he played well over 16 minutes at last check. He had a really big impact on that game last night. There are some nights where he's playing under 12 minutes, fourth line center. When they're chasing the scoreboard, he's not playing a lot, but he is killing penalties. And Rick Bowness has had some really impressive things to say about him. A couple of days ago, and I asked him about him, just the selflessness. Lots of people say, I just want to win. And I think a lot of people mean that, or think they mean that. I think Boone Jenner is showing that by his willingness to accept this quote unquote lesser role. Again, no complaints, no change in the way that he plays. Very impressive. And, you look up and down the lineup, and there are other examples of guys who are doing this right now. This time of year, you see guys going way above with the idea of team, that you'll see guys lay down to block shots late in games. There's so many commitment level type things that start to stand out at a time like this when a team's making a push. So just a couple of things I wanted to mention. Again, Alison Lukan joining us here around the break. Thanks big time, as always, to Grant Hunter, who's editing this podcast. Really, he's developed it. He helped to get off the ground, so thanks again to Grant. Thanks to David Cook for the intro music. Let's get to Alison Lukan. I'm sure she'll have some great things to say, as always. And after we talk to Alison, we'll take your questions. Hashtag AskPorty, either Blue Sky, Threads, X, whatever you want to call it. Reach out. We'll try to answer as many as we can. Okay, let's bring Alison in here. All right, joined now by Alison Lukan. Alison, always great to see you. How are things in the Pacific Northwest?
Well, I love the Pacific Northwest, but I am always delighted when I get to talk with you, Porty. Great to see you, my friend.
Well, thank you. And have you, I know many just assume I do have a halo over my head, but this
It's
is
nice.
It's not, I can't even figure
the
out.
composition of your shot is TV worthy.
Oh, thank
Very
you.
nice.
There's cool stuff behind me, but I'm a little large in the frame. But
listen, from where this show started many moons ago, we're elevating.
That's a little better.
Yeah.
There's a high-back menu up here, right there.
Good.
And then every week I pull an album out of the collection to promote. And this week we have the Shins.
That's a good call.
A great
That's
band.
a good call.
Yeah,
Nice.
We've done First Aid Kit, Avett Brothers, and now the Shins.
We love the First Aid Kit. You turned me on to them. They're great.
They are just amazing.
Yes.
Alison, they're playing 2 shows in Royal Albert Hall with, I believe, the Stockholm Symphony, but it's either that symphony or the London Philharmonic, which we have a wedding coming up a year from May, and my wife and I were still like, ugh. But it's in late September, so bad time.
Oh, well, yeah. I was going to say. I was about ready to say, when are we going? But now neither of us is going.
It would be amazing. Anyways, let's talk hockey.
Yes.
The Seattle Kraken are here this weekend. This is going to be available to people on Thursday, the day that the Blue Jackets play the Rangers. But let's look ahead to the Seattle Kraken real quick. What should Blue Jackets fans expect from the Kraken? I think Blue Jackets fans are starting to know what to expect from their Blue Jackets.
That's good.
That's steadied a bit. What should the Kraken bring to town with them on Saturday?
Yeah, this is a big trip for the Kraken. If you look at the standings, they're virtually tied in terms of points for the second wild card spot, and they have the advantage when you get to tiebreakers. I've never had to remember all the different tiebreakers and you guys are seeing it in the East too, right? Like these standings are insane, but this is a team that when it's playing its best is defensively stout. Don't think you necessarily have an advantage because you're out shooting them. Look at where you're able to shoot from. Are you able to get in front of the net? Are you able to get into the slot? They're big in transition. They like to stop you defensively and then get down and attack offensively. Goaltending has been really solid for the Kraken this year. And then they had one trade deadline acquisition, much like Columbus, and that's Bobby McMahon from Toronto. And I don't think this can continue. I've never seen it done before, but he has 4 goals in 3 games, his first 3 games with the Kraken. So he's been an offensive boost. This is a low scoring Kraken team they went into the Olympic break red hot, but coming out of the Olympic break, they've been a little inconsistent. And because of how they play, if they aren't at their best, it's really hard for them to control a game. But this trip is huge in terms of if they have games after the end of the regular season. So I expect hopefully a very motivated and focused Blue Jackets team. They'll play Nashville on Thursday and then head to Columbus.
Yeah. One thing I think is interesting, the Blue Jackets played Philadelphia last Saturday, and I kind of went into the game thinking, this is a big game for the Blue Jackets. They need to get 2 points out of this, probably a regulation win out of this. But then you look at the standings and, you always look up, right?
Yeah.
And Philadelphia is like 2 notches below. Like, this is a bigger game for them.
Yeah. Like,
it's huge for them.
Yeah.
I think maybe Blue Jackets fans will go into that game with the Kraken on and think, well, it's an East-West game, but there's an incredible amount of motivation on that bench as well. They're almost in the same spot as the Blue Jackets, really. I mean, they're above the bar, but they're right there fighting for their lives.
Yeah.
This league is really weird this year. This is a weird league this year. I was just looking earlier. 3 of the 4 division champions last year are not in the playoffs this year.
Yep.
Really, they're not even. Just 2 of them are not even close. Winnipeg and Toronto aren't even close. Washington's they know they're done, but they've been hovering. And Vegas is 6th in the West. Like, they're kind of within. They're within Kraken reach.
Yeah,
it's a gap, but they're within reach.
Yeah.
How did we get 5 of the teams that made the playoffs last year in the East are not in it right now? Like, that's a lot of changeover from one year to the next. How volatile has this seemed to you? And do you have any thoughts on if this is just an anomaly or is this here to stay, this parity?
Yeah, we it's funny. We just were talking about this on my podcast I do with Sarah Sivian and Shayna Goldman, Too Many Men. And I think it goes to a couple things. Everyone keeps talking about parity in the league, right? But I think part of why we're seeing parity is with the cap going up and with a lot of teams locking up their stars or key players that they want to keep, there's not a lot of movement in what a team can be. So if you have a need, you might know what that need is and you can't address it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's not teams out there that are A, willing to move their good players, or B, need to because they have cap space. And then I think you have, if you look at a Toronto, if you look at a Winnipeg, you're looking at teams that didn't maybe do the best job of looking at what they were going to be after what they did change in the offseason.
Yeah.
Everyone said Mitch Marner was the problem. Well,
who needs him?
He's fine.
Yeah.
But, apparently he's not. And,
Right.
Even Winnipeg, they lose basically one key player to Carolina, but that can pull everything apart. And again, maybe they did know and they just couldn't address it. And this deadline was ridiculously boring. And I think in part because of this is now it's cyclical, right? So people couldn't make big moves. Now everyone's clumped in. So no one's going to take a big swing.
Right.
And even if you want to, how can you? Because no one wants to move the pieces that you need. So it's an interesting time in the league for sure. We were all trying to remember if we'd seen something like this. And Sarah said not since before the last lockout. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's interesting. It is, you mentioned it, free agent July 1st isn't that fun anymore.
Right.
And it's not going to be this year either, probably.
Right.
Especially Charlie Coyle's likely to be the top center on the market.
It's crazy.
Right? And he's a really good third line center, good second line center in the right situation with the right partners. Not a superstar of the game. I think one of the most underrated players in the league, but not a superstar of the game. Like those guys just don't move anymore.
Yeah.
Trade deadline's not that fun anymore either. Like I wonder if the league is, I don't know what you can even do with that. The 7-year contracts instead of 8 isn't going to make much of a difference, but.
No, it's going to be interesting too, right? Because now you look at what's happening. Look at Toronto. Now there's rumors about Austin Matthews.
Right.
You look at Connor McDavid signs basically a bridge deal. Arguably, instead of the teams now controlling the narrative of these big moves, do the big stars now control the moves and say,
Hughes isn't signed.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's the control is shifting as well to the players, right? And so when it used to be, you have all this cap space, you're going to be in great shape as an organization. It doesn't matter as much anymore. So maybe that's part of it too, is that the players are gaining the decision-making power because the good stars are now evaluating the teams and saying, maybe I don't want to be here anymore.
Right. Yeah. Right. So when you look at this Blue Jackets team, and they've really bloomed under Rick Bowness.
They have.
What are you seeing? What do you like? I'll ask you about Mitch Marchment after this. But just in the general sense, when you watch the Blue Jackets play, what do you see with this team? What are the strengths that they're bringing to the table, and what still are maybe the places where they're susceptible?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm going to say anything that Blue Jackets fans don't know. I don't get to watch them as much as I used to, but I try and keep an eye. And, I think obviously it's interesting. We talked about the Kraken a little bit earlier. And one thing our coach, Lane Lambert, has said is at this time of year when it is so tight, when you have maybe young guys who haven't experienced a playoff push, or maybe you have guys who haven't been through one in a while, you have to gain, these are my words, not his, but the emotional maturity to deal with these high pressure moments, right? And I think we've seen that at a smaller scale with the Blue Jackets, of a lot of the leads that they were giving up and a lot of the inability to close out games. And I think early this season, before the coaching change, you saw that too, with the Blue Jackets being, in my opinion, much more tilted in terms of an offensive focus versus a defensive focus. But I think they're starting to balance that out. I love that they're in the hunt. I think it'd be amazing if they made it back to the postseason. And I know you just talked about this with Jeff Merrick as well, but I think Jet Greaves, he got some shine at the end of last year. Yeah. It'd be great to see him continue to be more and more in the conversation. And the other thing I like is I'm intrigued by how the front office is going about their business. This is what, now the second deadline, no no moving of UFAs, which you kind of get, but
Right.
I like kind of the risk reward that's going on with some of the decisions.
Yeah, I was intrigued too. Waddell did not explain it this way until after the trade deadline, but he didn't want to make an offer to a player that would underwhelm them.
Mhm.
Like in the summertime, you have time to negotiate, patch it back up, sign the contract. Everyone's good. You think. He also didn't want to sign one guy, not the other.
Yep.
Like he's really, really, really interested in how the room gets along and the culture within the room. I thought both of those things were interested. He's also, I mean, he may regret the Chinnikov trade.
Yes.
He's never going to announce or never admit that. But I remember saying when they made the trade, like telling people in Pittsburgh, like I'm not saying I know if it's going to work out, but that kid has he's a really good all-around player offensively, but he has two attributes that are special.
Yeah.
Burst of speed and that shot is special.
Yeah. You know, it's you mentioned culture. It's funny. I was, as you all know there, it's the 25th anniversary celebration for the Blue Jackets. And I'm still tight with a lot of those guys. So when they swing through here, I chat with them. And I actually saw Cam when I was back in Ohio this summer, saw Cam Atkinson, but recently saw Nick Foligno, recently saw Oliver Bjorkstrand. And I think, are we talking enough in all seriousness about the culture that was established under the leadership of Captain Nick Foligno?
100%.
And how that has translated. I mean, you and I have been around a lot of rooms and we hear gossip about a lot of rooms around the league, and they haven't always won, but the culture in that room has for the most part been one of the best. And I think we've seen it continue under Boone. I think Zach Werenski is maintaining that feel too. We're seeing
100%.
all the other leaders buy into it. And I don't think you can underestimate how important maintaining that culture is.
100%. Alison, you'll like this. I'm writing a thing for Thursday. So people who are watching this, it'll be today.
Click right now.
Hear that as today. Boone Jenner was the first line center here 2 years ago.
Yep.
Right. Fantilli was the second line center as a rookie. Then they brought in Monahan, and Boone slid to the second line center. And then Fantilli ascended from the third to the second, and Boone moved to the wing, sometimes played third line. And then they brought Charlie Coyle in, who's been tremendous. And Boone played on the left wing, and now he's playing fourth line.
Yep.
And so I pulled him aside the other day and asked him, like, I'm sure you're having a blast. How are you handling the new role?
Yeah.
Meaning fourth line.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I've played left wing, I played wing and center, so either one." It didn't even occur to him.
Yeah.
That that was, I guess, yeah.
But he's so
Boone.
And he's every professional athlete has an ego, but he is so egoless.
Yes.
You know, and when I also will say when you cover these guys daily, and you've had this too, Porty, and then you don't see them as much, so you kind of touch base, like I was mentioning some of the other guys.
Right.
I think no one should have to go through what Boone Jenner and his family and his Blue Jackets family have had to go
100%.
through, but to see who he is now as a human is delightful to me. And I think that informs his perspective on what matters and what doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, no question. And he is a quiet leader. He doesn't need to show it to people.
1,000%.
And I think that also leads many to conclude that he's not much of a leader, which I think.
Don't cross Boone. I would never.
I think that's the wrong read.
Yeah. Agreed.
Don Waddell, to his credit, we mentioned the Chinnikov. Oh boy. But there's also been two players that have come in, and you mentioned the burst that the Kraken have gotten at the trade deadline acquisition. The Blue Jackets bring Mason Marchment in. He goes on a tear, like 7 goals in 10 games, 10 goals in 7 games, something crazy. Now Garland's done much the same.
Yeah.
Mason Marchment hasn't said he has made it clear that he welcomed a change. Didn't get into anything specific, didn't want to say anything else way out the door. Are you surprised by what he's brought to this group, and do you have any thoughts as to why this may be? Is this the AskPorty we were talking about?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so let me just ask it as it was posted by Kevin McChesney at Tiger Physics. Just wondering about this. The Blue Jackets seem more consistent game to game. Also, can you?
Oh, no, not that one. The other one. Hold on.
Never mind.
One about Marchment. Yeah.
Yeah. Curious on her take on why Marchment didn't work in Seattle. He's been good in the past, and he's been overall solid in Columbus despite recent in-game benchings. Benching, he was right. His game would seem to translate with any team. So, wondering what the deal was. What are your thoughts on why maybe it didn't work there and why it does seem to be working here?
Yeah, for sure. I think it goes back to, it's a great question, right? Because in a way it's similar to Chinnikov, yet I don't think the Kraken regret the move or will regret the move. I think, when the Kraken acquired Mason Marchment, I was through the roof excited. I loved what he brings, his net front drive, his physicality, his orneriness, right? Yeah. We talked about how the Kraken play. They are very structured. They are very defensively minded. And we talked about my impressions of how Columbus plays. And I think that this just was not a fit for this player in the Kraken system versus the Blue Jacket system. And I always say, greatness comes when coaching and systems meet available players and ability to execute. Yeah. And I think it just was not a fit. To his credit, Mason Marchment never said anything negative in his time here, but I think even if you look at how Dallas plays, which is where he came from before Seattle, sure, right, is that's much more of an offensively minded system,
right?
And it just didn't click. And so I think it's funny, and again, I don't think this was personal. I think that the guys got along great from what I was able to witness, but when the trade was executed, that was a spark to the Kraken to go on a win streak there. And I think that for Mason Marchment to go, and for the front office to cut their losses, they basically get back what they paid for him in the offseason, and to say this just isn't going to make us better. So let's see if we can recoup the price we paid. Yeah. It is smart leadership and willingness to say move on. And I think Kraken fans are excited to see Mason Marchment flourish there. I think he's fun to watch, right?
Yeah, he's not in the division anymore either. Right?
Yeah.
That's where the Chinnikov thing.
Like that's true.
They don't play him again this year, but oh boy, that could be. Yeah, because he really played well for.
Well, wasn't he in a shootout against you guys or something a while back? Did I see that correctly? Yeah,
he was. Yeah. They did play once since the trade.
Yeah,
and he was okay. He wasn't great.
Yeah.
He had a couple of chances though. But who would for him? You can only imagine from his perspective.
Oh,
go play with Evgeny Malkin.
Hang out with Sidney Crosby in the room every day. What are you doing?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Start. Go. Yeah. Rick, but you are a leadership expert.
Alison. Supposedly. I studied it.
by documentation. Rick Bowness comes in January 12th with this team. It was on a boat. Decided to
in the Florida Keys.
Oh, that's right. You know that well too. How impressed are you by a coach jumping on midstream and having the dramatic results? It's been a complete. They were 19-19-7, so perfectly 500.
Yeah,
and they've been on an absolute tear since then.
Yeah, it's funny because we're obviously prepping for our next couple games, which includes Columbus, and just looking at, the recent record. I think, you talk about a new coach coming in and getting a new coach bump. And I think this supersedes any new coach bump that we've seen. And I think, Bones I've never covered him directly, but I think that, his reputation speaks for himself. And I think the self-awareness of an individual who says, I'm removing myself from the game, and then the self-awareness to say I'm coming back, speaks to a caliber of honesty that, those of us who remember John Tortorella's ways, whether you like it or not, and honesty can come in different flavors. Honesty is such a huge ingredient of success in a locker room. The little I've heard that he says represents to me a culture of accountability, which is another huge thing that Lane Lambert is bringing out here in Seattle. I think that's a huge ingredient for success in an NHL locker room. So it's very impressive what he's doing. And I think it's great for the players to be able to see and feel the success that they can produce and start to get the results. And it's interesting. We have a question, I know AskPorty too, but the numbers prove it out too. It's not just that they're quote unquote finally winning. they're actually improving in meaningful ways that mean they deserve to win games.
Yeah. You know what he does that I think is cool? And the last coach here, I remember doing it quite this abruptly, was Ken Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And I think they both see the game in very, very similar ways. Like, you have to check. Your offensive chances come from checking.
Yep.
And as odd as it sounds, the more you check, the more offensive chances you have.
Right.
You don't get to just not play with the puck and wait for it to be on your stick. But Rick Bowness has a way of delivering it he has like a default smile.
Yeah.
Like there's
jolly. He's jolly.
There's a warmth there. And I think Hitch sometimes could be rather caustic with players, especially abruptly.
Oh, Porty.
I think Hitch sometimes felt, I think that was a defense mechanism for him as a guy that didn't play the game. And Bones, of course, played the game, but he can be tough and he can be demanding. Mason Marchment benched the other night.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing a game against Philadelphia, and they're just getting hemmed in, and he chucks a pass across the middle blind in the neutral zone, like hoping someone's there. Bad turnover. And now they're hemmed in again. And he didn't play again for almost a full period, like in the middle of that period to the next. So there is accountability, but I do think there's a level of accountability that is necessary in a room to let guys all know that you're all being treated the same way.
1,000%.
And I don't think Mason Marchment played again last night. I don't think there's like any of that stuff, but there seems to be a real healthiness to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Who do you think is the best team in the league right now?
Oof. I mean, it's easy to say Colorado, right? But they just got spanked by the Penguins there earlier this week.
Right. Wow.
It's interesting to me. I've said this. I think Colorado is very, very, very good. In a way, I think they should be welcoming times like this, because if you're that good, I want my team to have some adversity
100%
before you go into the playoffs. I always, and it's not necessarily rational when it comes to not necessarily best team in the league, but team I'm looking to make damage happen in the playoffs. I always look at Dallas. I just like how Jim Nill builds his teams. Right. I like what he does. I'm not sold on Edmonton. I'm just not. And I'm not sold on Vegas.
What's changed in Edmonton?
Goaltending. And they weaken their defense.
Yes.
I know. It's crazy. And, Carolina, if you were following any of their, fan reaction, and they didn't do anything really at the deadline.
Right.
And the way they play is so effective in regular season hockey, but it ultimately always seems to burn out in the playoffs. And I don't know that they've done enough to address it, but we'll see.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that last night too. Like, man, they're hard to play against.
Yeah.
They just make you do stuff faster than you want to do it.
But then Columbus just beat them, and the Kraken were able to beat them too. If you can sort out how to play against them, you can beat them. Yeah.
And you know what? It was a pretty stars-aligned night last night for the Blue Jackets too. When I first watched the play behind the net with Danton Heinen and Bussy, the Carolina goaltender, I was like, I'm not sure if Heinen even touched his skate. I looked at the replay and I'm like, oh, he touched the hell out of his skate. Yeah. Like, he basically kicked his left skate out from underneath him. And it wasn't reviewable as a goalie interference call because it was tripping, because the goalie was out of his cage, and so they couldn't review it, that's why Brendan Moore was going crazy on the bench. There was just a lot of stuff last night. I don't think I've ever seen a player get 2 double minors for the same penalty in the same game. That's bizarre. But I have rarely seen a double minor high sticking not called until review, like the whole world. And there was both of them. The hands didn't go up on either one of them until, oh, that guy's bleeding. I wonder what happened. And then they saw it. It was a bizarre night. But let's get to this question if we can. And I'll let you get on your day, because I know you've got stuff to do. This is the question from Kenny Disney.
Ready.
I was just wondering about this. The Blue Jackets seem more consistent game to game. Also, Aaron Portside, so forget all that, Allison, because this is the part for you. Can you have Allison talk about how the numbers have changed under Rick Bowness? So January 12th to today.
Yep. Yes, I can. I did my homework.
More leadership.
So as people may remember, we always look at even strength play. We exclude special teams because that's an advantage and it doesn't necessarily happen enough to be statistically viable. So even strength, if you look at before the coaching change, they were middle of the pack in the league in terms of controlling the amount of shot attempts that happened in their games. They were 15th in the NHL. Under Bones, they've jumped up to 8th in the league.
That's significant.
Yes. Here's what's interesting to me. Now, everyone's going to talk about the defensive structure, and it is real. They were 24th in the league in terms of allowing shot quality against per game. Now they are 7th best. They've eliminated almost a half of a goal against quality-wise per game. However, they have not necessarily done it at the expense of offense. They've lost just a 10th of a goal for shot quality-wise. And all of that combined means that they jumped from 13th in controlling the quality battle to 6th. And here's the underrated thing. We in Seattle talk about this a lot, and people who really nerd out always talk about the relationship between the defense. Well, if you're in Edmonton, you talk about it a lot. The relationship between the defense in front of you and the goaltending behind you and how they are so interconnected. As a result, and I'm sure if I was watching the games more closely, there should also be credit given to both Elvis and Jet. But if you look at the team's save percentage, so if you've got a better defense in front of you, basically your goaltenders can be better because they know what kind of chances the defense is going to let get through to them most of the time, and they can be more prepared to stop that shot, hopefully. Before the coaching change, the team's save percentage, even strength, ranked 12th in a year where save percentage above 900 is a gift. They were at 90.8. Now, since the coaching change, they are 7th at 91.6. So don't want to give credit to just defense or just goaltenders, but this synergy between them has also resulted. So really, it's been an improvement across the board.
And that also tells you that Elvis has joined Jet a bit too.
Yes.
Because those early numbers were mostly Jet. If you look at it through the floor. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Is this too bold of a statement that 90% of being able to defend is want to?
90%?
Okay. What percentage? There you go. What percentage?
It's a great question. And it's interesting. It's for people who don't know me, I'm a big stats and analytics nerd, but I definitely believe that as much as you have stats, you have to have the eye test because you need both to tell you the story of what's happening. Hockey is an art, not a science. But I'm going to say want to is 45%.
Oh, less than half.
Because you can put out 5 players who want to defend, but if they don't have a structure to rely on, their want to could have them running into each other and being in the wrong spots and putting their defender out to dry. So that's my answer. That's my nerdy answer. You have to have the want to, though.
You have to.
You have to.
45% is a huge percentage.
Sure. It's just not 90.
Not 90. You're halfway there.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, Alison, anything else you want to add in here?
I would just like to say it's always great to touch base with you. It's great to touch base with the awesome Blue Jackets fans. And if you're a fan of hockey in Columbus, I know there's a lot going on at the NHL level, but do not forget to support and watch and cheer on the Ohio State women. They are playing in the Frozen Four this weekend over at Penn State in Pagula. So they could get their 3rd natty in 4 years if they are able to do all the things they need to do. Support that team. They're awesome. And that's the only time I'll say go Bucks.
Legendary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see Ohio University won?
I did.
An ACHA championship last night.
Yeah. It's quite entertaining out here because the West Coast people are still trying to figure out Ohio versus Ohio State. It's quite entertaining.
Right. Yeah. There's still people here that struggle with it.
That's true.
Yeah. Alison, always a pleasure.
My pleasure too, Porty. It's great to see you.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing some life to the podcast. Appreciate you.
Always. Anytime, my friend. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Okay. Always good to be with Alison Lukan. Great of her to join us. And thank you so much for your questions. we're picking up a little steam here. We're getting more questions each week, so that's good. Appreciate that. Always makes for a good conversation. Kevin McChesney, your question was answered by Allison. That's better than I could do. CBJ Akas. We got Allison on Marchman as well. I'll get to the other ones here. This is from Chad. Bonus emphasizes playing fast. Is that the key reason Voronkov's healthy scratches? What do you see for his future with the Blue Jackets? So, great question. Voronkov a healthy scratch last night. I think you could see him against the Rangers tomorrow. This isn't today. You're listening to it. Sorry, and this isn't anything that's been told to me. I think they're going to try to keep as many people active as possible. I think the Carolina Hurricanes speed was an issue. Again, nobody expressed that specifically about Voronkov, but that would make a ton of sense to me. I just don't think they feel like Voronkov has made the sort of impact and played with the sort of level of desperation that is required this time of year. He's been slow to come around to that. Now, it's not easy to be out 2 games in one game, play 8 to 10 minutes, but this is your job as a pro. You've got to make the most of those minutes. And so that's the challenge before him now. He's not going to be a guy that sits there for a long time. Miles Wood is a veteran, regular NHLer. He's sitting as well, right? I mean, this is a time where sacrifices are made. Again, I mentioned earlier, Boone Jenner playing 4th line. I don't question what this means for his future with the Blue Jackets. I think this is the 3rd year in a row, and I'm not sure if it's fitness related or not. Wouldn't say that if I didn't know, and I don't know, so I'm not making that claim. But this is the 3rd season in a row where he's sort of petered out at the end of the season. So that has to be figured out one way or the other. So we'll see. I mean, I don't remember a time when the Blue Jackets were making a healthy scratch of a player with 17 goals. That speaks to the depth that they've got right now. And I think they have an identity under Bonus that is really taking shape. And I think you saw a really good example of it on Tuesday. Chad had a second one to both you and Allison. Allison, of course, has gone about her day. Who is your most surprising interview of all time? All time. Oh, wow. Well, so I don't know about surprising. It was surprising, but the first NHL player I ever interviewed was Chris Pronger back in 1998. And I had gone to St. Louis to do a series on the Blues. If you're longtime subscribers of the Columbus Dispatch may remember that in the buildup of the NHL coming to town, Michael Ayres, then with the Columbus Dispatch, now with his own thing, The Disrespected, we split up and went to NHL towns all over North America. He took, I think there would have been 14, there would have been 28 at the time, so he took 14. He may have done more than 14. I did a bunch too. St. Louis was the first one I did. First coach I talked to was Joel Quenneville. First player interviewed was Chris Pronger. Anyways, Pronger left the game that I was there for with back spasms, and I was used to covering baseball. If a guy left the game injured, you're not getting him. Well, the Blues PR said, "Hey, we know you came all the way here for this. Have a seat and just hang out. He'll be down eventually." So the dressing room had long cleared out, and I hear this bellowing from the hallway of a guy screaming, "Columbus, Ohio!" And he sort of swung himself into the doorway. It was Pronger, who is 6'6". He looked at like he was 7'4" that day. But I said, "Geez, you sound like a rock star." And he said, "Oh, I'm a rock star." Anyways, he sat down. We talked for about 45 minutes. I don't know if I've ever laughed as hard. Most of it I could not print. Some of it I could print. Real quick, great story. he was there. He took a puck to the side of the head. And this was not that night, but earlier in his Blues career. And it's laughable now. It wasn't then. It was really scary then. He went flat out on the ice, flat on his back, out. And he's looking up at the ceiling rafters, and Al McGinnis is the first player to him. And Al McGinnis is patting the side of his helmet, trying to get him to come to. And here's how Pronger tells the story. He says, I don't even know what's happened to me. I know my head hurts. I see bright lights. I look up into the sky. I see these bright lights. It looks like I'm heading towards eternity. And there's Al McGinnis's face. And I said to myself, my God, the people of St. Louis are right. Al McGinnis is God. Like it was one story like this after another. And I couldn't scribble fast enough. I was worried about the batteries running out. Like I just wanted to go write a Chris Pronger book. And all I really needed him for was to sort of set the scene of what it's like to play for the Blues and what is the story of this franchise and this organization. Anyways, I've told Pronger this when we've ran into each other. He's hilarious. It was hilarious that day. And if I wasn't already excited to cover the NHL, that pushed it right over the edge. So that would be mine. Sorry, the question didn't get to Allison. But yeah, so there we go. CBJ Fanatic from Finland says, how likely do you see Waddell parting ways with Matejchuk this summer? Don forced his own hand with Provorov. Okay, I'm going to take issue with that. We have Werenski too, of course. One would think that something has to give if Don Waddell wants that defense to be tougher and meaner. Also, Jackson Smith is in the pipeline. Okay, so as excited as I would be to see Jackson Smith, I would say take him out of the equation because that's probably not a name to keep in mind for next year. And I don't know. He did force his own hand with Provorov in the sense that he tried to land a bigger fish through the trade market and couldn't do it. I agree with his decision. I did then, as painful as it was. I think he needed to keep Provorov. And when the free agent market completely dried up, the trade market completely dried up, he had to not re-sign Provorov would be to lessen the back end that frankly could not have handled being taken away from. It couldn't have been. It couldn't. They would not be where they are right now. That back end would be a real mess. They would have had to given up major pieces to fix the back end. I do understand what you're saying with Werenski, with Provorov, and with Matejchuk all being left side shots. Matejchuk's played on the right side. He doesn't mind playing on the right side. He played a lot of it in junior. It's not across this league. It's not always left, right, left, right. I know that's what people want. It's the perfect fit. It really bothers some coaches. Bonus isn't a big fan of having two lefties or two righties in the same pair, but sometimes you got to do it, right? And so this is where it's at. I think, and some may spit their coffee out or whatever it is they're drinking this morning. I think as these move along, the way that Severson has played this year, I'm not sure that contract is completely untradeable as many thought it was. He's quietly had a really good year. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy to move it this summer, but it's not the shackle that many people have portrayed it to be. It's changed in the last year. And look at some of these numbers being dropped on players, both already, these extensions, but also look this summer in free agency. And my prediction is that by July 5th, nobody looks at Provorov's contract and thinks that it's absolutely, completely out of whack, both term and money. All right, let's get rolling. I'm getting rather loquacious here. George Matai says, Aaron and Allison, here's the scenario. Jackets re-sign bonus for 2 years and promote Vogelhuber as an assistant. He trains for 2 years and then takes over as head coach. Do you think the Blue Jackets will consider this? And would Trent be amenable, or would he hold out for a head coaching job? George, good question. I think it's one we've been asked a couple times here. I think it's time for Vogelhuber to experience the NHL. This is me speaking, me alone. I think for most non-NHL players, I think whether you need it to be a better coach or not, I think you needed to put GMs and owners' minds at ease if they're going to hire you. The Colorado situation with Jared Bednar, it was a totally different situation. Patrick Wall quit in August, right? That's not where this is. I do think, yes, the Vogelhuber would benefit from a couple of years, certainly 1 year in Columbus. He knows a lot of guys on that bench. There are a ton of players on this team, this Blue Jackets team, that speak very highly of Trent Vogelhuber. There's a ton of guys in Cleveland right now that love Vogelhuber. He is going to be an NHL coach. I like your idea of the timeline. My sense, and both Waddell and Bonus have said that they've not discussed an extension. But what makes sense to me, if this thing goes as well as it sure appears to be going, is that Bonus signs up for another year, maybe just goes a year at a time after this to see where he's at, what he wants to do. This is going to be a really hard act to follow if Rick Bonus decides to retire this summer. So, yeah, there we go. Let's see. Make sure we're not missing anything. I do appreciate your questions. Do appreciate you listening, of course. And, yeah. Well, geez. Mentions are always fun. Yeah, the 614 rule kind of took a beating last night against Carolina, didn't it? Let's see. That's a thank you. Thank you for your kind words, Dan. Okay, predictions from you or Allison this week's women's final fall. We should have gotten Allison on that. I think Ohio State is always a good bet, given the way that they've dominated the last couple of years. Here's Jim E. There's speculation that Austin Matthews' about his future in Toronto. Is it realistic for the Blue Jackets to pursue him? What would be realistic packages? Del Bell, Belouz, or well, now we're getting into names. Well, let's first see if he is thinking that. It's not a great scene up there right now. It's not. And I think it's harder to reload quickly in this league right now, too. As we mentioned earlier, the free agency is not what it used to be. Trades are not as easy as they used to be. Yeah. Let's see here. I reached out earlier about sending you a career. When does Jackson Smith sign his ELC? Great question. It's on the burner right now. Is that coming around the corner here? Is that I don't get the sense that he's been overwhelmed by college hockey at all. We noted earlier today he's on the All Big Ten rookie team and the All Big Ten second team. Led the conference in goals, led the conference in points. This is among defensemen, and nationally ranked in both of them, 4th and 13th. So, yeah. All right, we got to a lot of these questions. I really appreciate it. Got a lot here late that I didn't get a chance quite to process. Let's see. When do you think, this is from Zach, when do you think the Blue Jackets window is going to open for a cup? Well, if you're in the playoffs, I think you got a shot. Not sure if they're there yet, playoffs or cup. But, yeah, you know what? I would say this team is growing exponentially. I think the next level for them to get to is for Kent Johnson to be a sustained offensive threat. You want to see Matejchuk sort of work some of the little mistakes out of his game and become a really reliable, responsible defenseman. I think you want to see either Voronkov become something or them turn Voronkov into something if they decide to move along with him. So, and I still think with this team, Fantilli is still a very young player. They've got Marchenko is still a young player. There's still a ceiling here between the tops of their heads and the ceiling. There's still some room there. And so I think they're going to keep growing. I think it's a shame that the first 45 games went as they did. Because if this team had played up to its potential, we'd be in a much different situation right now. But you know what? For this team, making the playoffs would represent a huge amount of growth. A huge amount of growth. So that should be the first step and take it from there. And if they keep playing like they have been playing, could happen very soon, a month from now. Thanks for all the questions. Again, thanks to Grant Hunter. Thanks to David Cook. Thanks, of course, to Alison Lukan for joining us. Thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. Hope you're digging the new format here. You know the drill. Hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, hit all the buttons. Hit all the buttons, and we'll thank you in advance. Always a pleasure. Hope to see you at the rink soon, and we'll talk to you very soon. You've been listening to the Front and Nationwide podcast.